Do you like money? If so, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Real Estate 401k Show with your hosts Ryan Gerdes, Mike Weinstein, and Justin Frederick, helping you build a legacy of wealth through real estate. Powered by the Real Estate 401k Group at West USA and the Frederick team with Fairway Mortgage. NMLS number 625918.
Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Ryan Gerdes. It's just like a moving carousel around here.
Yeah.
1 week you're gone, next week Justin's gone.
I've been gone for a couple of weeks, right?
Well, we took off 1 week.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I missed you guys. You know what I mean? Like, it feels good to be back, but...
you wouldn't say that if you go back and listen to all the shit that Justin said about you.
Oh, dude, was he talking shit?
I'm sure. I just assume so.
That freaking Neanderthal.
All right, you're going to want to text the word POP for pop culture. How about that? I don't know. To 623-AZ-RECON. That's POP to 623-AZ-RECON. You might hate us by the end of this episode, so go ahead and let it fly. I feel like I'm back in my radio days.
Yeah.
We try so hard. Well, as a matter of fact, I think we're pretty darn successful, never letting anyone know where we stand politically. I'm not going to change anyone's minds and so forth, but obviously with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and keep in mind, by the time that you hear this episode, we'll be a couple weeks into it, so things can evolve in the next week when this episode gets posted and goes live. And we're not necessarily here to express our personal opinions about it as much as what could the aftermath look like on a national level. How does the government respond? And ultimately, how do we see this possibly impacting the real estate market for our purposes as real estate wealth managers? And, you know, I've spent a lot of time talking to my kids about it. I knew who Charlie Kirk was, and knew his platform. I didn't realize how well, I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, I didn't know how well they knew of him. Like when you see all the news of the influence and the millions of young people coming together, I had no idea he had that kind of influence.
Well, I mean, like, our show is on social media, and, like, of course, we
don't have that kind of influence.
We track it, but we're not death scrolling on our beds for 5-6 hours a day on social media. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like, you know, when I'm going to bed and I have a hard time going to sleep, I'll jump on and watch a few of the reels and whatnot. And that's what I know Charlie Kirk from. When
I have a hard time sleeping, I just turn on our podcast.
Oh, hey, that's a good move. But you know, because I think I ran into some of his content, you know, a couple of years ago, and so every now and then some of his stuff would pop up, and some of it was, you know, intriguing, some of it wasn't. What mattered is that the dude, you know, he spent a lot of time, you know, like creating content and having a voice, and so you know, the kids that just live on social media, he had a grip on them, and that's who he was targeting. He wasn't really necessarily targeting guys like us.
No.
So he's not going to necessarily pop up on our algorithms as much as he's going to the people here. But I did know that he was a local, and so when the whole assassination went down, it's probably louder here than it is in a lot of other states. Just because, I mean, he's living here, and he's having his funeral here. I don't think that I don't know if they've determined exactly where he's going to be buried yet, but that's neither here nor there. What got me to thinking was, you know, we've talked in the past a lot about how the real estate market hits different tipping points. Something happens. Nobody necessarily knows what it is until it does happen. And so I'm not saying that necessarily this is a tipping point, but it could be. You know, it could be a straw that breaks a camel's back, or it could be something that actually morphs into something pretty darn big. And so that being said, whenever we've run into like World War II, that brought the country out of the Great Depression. There was some stagnation in the market. COVID hit, then all of a sudden it was a nationwide frenzy, and just things like that have happened over the years, and so it just kind of got me thinking, like, if this boils into something, which it could simmer down just as fast as it got crazy, but it could also morph into something that gets pretty intense, and that's when the government does like to come in and do bailouts. They like to do subsidies. They like to support different things that could either encourage or discourage investors into investing into mortgage-backed securities or into bonds or into stock or into commodities or technology, whatever. And so I just thought it'd be something interesting for us to discuss, because if something transpires and creates a lot of, it creates an even bigger wedge between the left and the right, and or some type of political type of, if this thing turns violent, right, then we could be seeing something like that happen. Because it doesn't take much imagination to think that, okay, with Tyler Robinson, with this whole thing, how that goes down, if there isn't some radical from left or right that decides to, retaliate in some fashion, and then all of a sudden, that pisses these people off, which then pisses them off, and so just ends up being let me one up you for every single thing that you do, and then all of a sudden, any peace and any happiness in their lives and in their community all of a sudden goes south, and then the government gets involved.
Yeah, and what really shocked me the most about the assassination of Charlie Kirk was we all know that we are a truly divided nation. That's been very apparent over the last 6 to 8 years. I don't think and this is going to get to a point, but I didn't realize like how bad it was until this. Like the millions of Charlie Kirk supporters that have come to the surface and have become very outspoken again. I underestimated his influence, and then the amount of people that absolutely hated everything that he stood for, to the point. And this is where I kind of I am going to get a little bit political. I don't see a world where I would be celebrating or approving of an assassination of a figure that is just exercising his First Amendment rights. I don't care. There's been a lot of presidents that I didn't like. A lot of members of Congress and the Senate I don't like. I just could never see myself, whether I agree with them or I don't agree with them, and if I disagree with them, to a high degree, celebrating that. So the chasm is just a lot larger than I thought, and the anger on both sides is greater than I anticipated. But the point of the matter is, up till now, and keep in mind we recorded this last week, up till now we have not seen any further violence. I know that there is a lot of talk about the extremists on the left and people just saying it's their fault and it's going to create more violence. I can tell you, they exist on the right as well. So it's not the center. It's not the center. It's not the rational people. It's the people who are ultimately extreme, where I see a possibility of it getting more violent on both sides.
I agree with that.
Incredibly on both sides. And so And going back to your World War II analogy and COVID, as you mentioned, then the government steps in. So in the event that this just goes nuclear, not, nuclear bombs or anything like that,
Sure.
but what do you foresee and what are we looking for as key indicators in the real estate market? And I'm not saying, don't take advantage of bad things happening, but there's money to be made. It is what it is. The government's going to come in and bail people out, and there's ways that people can take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I don't think that Trump is definitely going to step forward and try to bail people out. But I think that members of Senate and Congress are going to they're going to say, hey, look, we need to throw some money at this thing, and maybe Trump does. I don't know, but I do foresee that if this gets out of hand, that they're going to start pumping money into people's pockets, and they're not, maybe not directly into their pockets, but do it in such a way that it could be interest rates. Maybe we do see a 5 in front of our interest rate faster than we thought, because prior to that, if you said when are we going to see a 5 in front of our interest rates, my answer would have been probably never in my lifetime. But maybe now I'm over here thinking, like, if something like that gets out of hand, it could definitely be here in the next 12 months, kind of depending, right? So if that happens, you're going to see a lot more activity. I think that there's going to, and it's also going to change the landscape of how consumers consume. Remember when COVID hit, all of a sudden the new demand was, we want a place where we can homeschool. We want something that has better internet infrastructure because we're now working from home and everything is on Zoom or on meetings or whatever. So their demands completely changed because now everyone was confined to home. I do think that if this gets out of hand, you're going to see a lot more people that are quote unquote preppers. You're gonna see people that are going to want subterranean living spaces, that are meaning basements, etc. A lot more storage. They're going to want to have food, water, ammunition, depending on what type of individual they are. It's just kind of, you can kind of visualize what that could transform into. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to be a bad thing. I'm just saying that the people...
It just changes.
Yeah, the people that kind of were preppers are going to be more preppers. The people that never even thought about that, they're all of a sudden going to say, you know what, I don't want the postage stamp lot size anymore because I can't control who my neighbor is, and because I have such a deep hatred for this group of people, if they were to move in next to me, I don't know how I'd be able to stand it. So I would want a bigger spread. I could see something like that happening, and just let the dominoes keep going on down that.
Well, I think what also you're going to see, if again, we're not saying it's going to get out of hand. It's the possibility, and it's the things that weigh on my mind as especially as a dad.
Mm-hmm.
If things get out of hand, it is going to hurt. It could hurt the economy. People are going to stop going out as much. People are not going to want to be out in public spaces. Kids aren't going to want to go to school. Because I know you were on the cruise when this thing hit. While this story's breaking, we had another school shooting up in Colorado.
I wasn't cut off from the world. I mean, there was I was still getting still getting the news that I was that I was open to.
But you might have been 3 to 5 bourbons in.
That's a fact. That's not even a possibility. It's a fact.
And so I think it could change the culture in that way, and then it is just a trickle down effect. If people aren't going out as much, people are going to be getting laid off. Businesses are going to be going just like what we saw in during COVID, and then to your point, then the federal government comes in, and with COVID, they were giving people money.
Yeah,
they were literally just sending people checks
and dissolving debt.
People, I know people that were not working. They didn't have jobs. They were living at home or living in the dorms, and they were getting government handouts during COVID. It made me so angry. If you're not putting in, you shouldn't be taken out.
That's right. It baffled me. And so, like, to your point, the first thing that I did is I reached out to my kids because they were back here at home alone. I mean, they're older and they can hold it together. They're fine, But I told them, I was just like, hey, until we know what's what and things have calmed down a little bit, don't go into big crowds. Stay away from it.
I told my college kid, don't go to college the next day.
And I said, and if you hear something erupting or somebody who's being loud and boisterous about their politics, just walk away. Save that fight for a rainy day, which is not my who I am, and it's not what it's not what I've instilled in my kids either. It's you stand up for what you believe in, and you talk it out. You do it peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
But I told him just for the time being, chillax, because everything is so volatile right now, and who knows what the hell these people are going to do, because if they're happy about the assassination or pissed off about the assassination, it could turn into something that's that you could be collateral damage on. If you say, hey, look, I don't agree with you, and they decide to say, well, I'm going to pick up a gun because I recently learned that that's okay, then now all of a sudden, because you just said, hey, I don't agree with you, you're going to get shot. And so I know that that's extreme, and I know that, but when you're a parent, your parent immediately goes over to like the worst case scenario and the worst possible result. And that's just kind of what happened. And so, I obviously, I think now it's perfectly fine if they want to, go out and be with their friends.
Sure.
and
you can't hide.
Yeah, you can't live a life of fear.
I throughout my radio career, I got the opportunity to get to know quite a few U.S. senators and U.S. House of Representative members and so forth. And it was funny, we would talk about dialogue, we would talk about debate, and these men and women would, on the House floor, on the Senate floor, Ryan, they would throw down nothing different than you're hearing right now. But the difference was, at the end of it, they would go down to the bar and have a drink and laugh. And you remember those days when you can just disagree with someone and really disagree and be angry with their opinions, but afterwards you could go grab a beer and laugh about it and be friends.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've all seen those movies where two lawyers are in a room, one's representing the defendant, one's representing the plaintiff, and they're over there slinging mud and talking mad shit to each other and pointing fingers and saying some pretty offensive stuff to each other, about each other and about each other's clients, etc. And then afterwards, they go down to the local pub, and I know a handful of litigators, and that is what they do. It's very common for them to just, like, hey, all right, well, we clocked out. Now we can go have a beer. I mean, they might still bring a little bit of the office into the bar, but okay, they're not doing anything that's going to hurt one another, or, I mean, they're just words. And now, with that being said, though, I mean, there are consequences, but it should never be death, right?
Shouldn't be violent.
Yeah, don't be an idiot and go online and celebrate the assassination of Charlie Kirk if you're a CEO for a big company or a school
or a teacher or
It was funny because we had money on Clemson to win. Who the hell were they playing? It wasn't Georgia Tech. Anyhow, and then I don't remember who it was, but it was some big guy for Clemson went on there and celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so I immediately went on to because we have a little pool betting group, and I was like, hey, I'm no longer behind the pick for Clemson to win this one because I don't know that those boys can handle that kind of shade. I mean, like, it was Georgia Tech. I was like, they're going to go into Georgia. It was a, pretty right wing, area of the country.
Yeah.
And and one of their heads over there, their school board is over there condoning violence for and I was just like, I think those boys are going to buckle, and then they did. So we dodged a bullet.
Serves them right. Yeah. Well, I could go on for hours talking about this, but we do want to give you the opportunity to reach out to us if you want to understand the market conditions, how we see the market, and build that strategy to build wealth in real estate. At the end of the day, that's what we do as real estate wealth managers. The reason that we chose the word pop, I was just thinking pop culture.
I like it. That was good, dude.
So go ahead and text the word pop to 623-AZ-RECON. That's pop to 623-AZ-RECON, or just type the word pop in the comment section.